Welcome viewers to the series Exploring Careers in Data Analytics. My name is Ayesha Gautam, class of 24 at Middlebury College, and I would like to introduce this episode's guest speaker. I'm joined today by Max Borrmann, class of 2020, Data Visualization Associate at Planet. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Max.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Max, this series explores a number of different professional roles involving data analytics. Tell us a little bit about Planet and the work you do as a data visualization associate. We can start off with what Planet does, who it serves, and are there other organizations that do what Planet does?
Sure. So yeah, like you said, I work at Planet. Planet is a satellite data company. So we operate a fleet of Earth observation satellites, the largest fleet of Earth observation satellites, which means that we have over 200 satellites in orbit around the Earth, taking pictures, collecting data, nearly of the entire Earth's landmass every day. So it's a lot of data. Um, and that data is then sold to our customers. And those customers range from, an agricultural company to governments, both state, local, national governments, and pretty much anyone else you can think of who might benefit from having a view of the Earth from above. And so there's a wide variety of uses of the data, and learn about new ones every day. But that's sort of at its most basic, what Planet is doing is collecting this data and then selling it to customers. There are people within the organization that do everything from building the satellites, designing the satellites, all the way up through people operating the business, whole sales team selling the data. I'm personally part of the marketing department, so helping build awareness of our data. And then there's also legal teams and finance teams and all sorts of different teams that are keeping the business going.
That's fascinating. Wow. So you said you are in the marketing department. Do you use GIS and data analytics in your role as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on the data visualization team, which is within the marketing department. And so when the marketing team wants to produce a webinar or go to a trade show or do anything really to raise awareness of Planet's data, they often want to include imagery in those pieces of content, or for an ad, or for a slide deck at a presentation. And so all of that imagery pretty much comes from our data visualization team. And so we're in charge of going through and looking at the data that's being collected by the satellites and choosing the data that tells the story that we're trying to tell in the situation. So if we're marketing to agricultural customers, maybe we're looking for data that has something to do with agriculture. Or if we're marketing to a government customer, something that's related to what they're interested in. And so my team is looking for that data, trying to help the people that are doing, preparing the content to find the right data, and then we process it, which involves GIS sometimes. We have a sort of spatial plugin for Photoshop because we do a lot of color correction, which is basically the satellite data and the images when we first start working with them don't really look like a whole lot. And so we need to go through the steps of turning the raw data basically into what it might look like if you were looking at the Earth from above. So a true color image, or the forests look green and the water looks dark, and the buildings look like buildings, and it's interpretable by an outside audience.
making it like palatable for the customers as well. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah. And a further like follow-up question I have is
Mm-hmm.
how does your work now relate to the things you learned at MID? Specifically, I saw that you worked at the Sustainability Solutions Lab. I did too. And
Mm-hmm.
you wrote and produced a multimedia video series explaining the details of Middlebury's energy system to a general audience. So that's like one example of the work
Mm-hmm.
you've done at MID.
Sure.
Have you found that in your role now, you'll like fall back on things that you've learned during
Yeah,
your experience in undergrad?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of the things that I do now come from experiences I had at Middlebury. Um, I was a geography major, and I took, I think, my sophomore year, cartography with Professor Howarth. And that was after taking GIS, which I enjoyed. I was really excited to see that sort of combination of working with geospatial data and working with data, but then also producing something that's a little bit artistic and that you sort of have to put a design spin on. So you mentioned those videos I made with the Sustainability Solutions Lab. Again, it was taking like some concept, the Middlebury energy system, and then I've always sort of enjoyed art and design, and sort of creating a video or an animation. I did some drawings, and so I think that's sort of similar to my role now, where we're working with geospatial data. All of this data coming from the satellites is tied to specific points on the Earth. And so you can use it in a GIS system, and you can do all sorts of, really data heavy things with it. But you can also do sort of more artistic things. You can make maps. You can, we're thinking a lot about the color. Like, does this look like what the world looks like? Sort of almost like from a photography perspective in some ways. And so, like some of my favorite experiences at Middlebury in the classroom, I think it's a combination of both data and knowing how to work with geospatial data, but then also there's an artistic element. And some of my coworkers are graphic designers who are laying out these pieces of content, or preparing the marketing materials, or working on sort of the Planet brand. And so we're kind of all working together, which I really enjoy.
That's really cool. Yeah. And my follow-up question would have been, what do you find most challenging and interesting about your work? And it seems like being able to have your own like artistic agency and like making these maps sounds like something that is a key part of your work that makes it fun. Is there anything
Yeah.
you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. It can also be challenging in some ways from uh, um, not always from a technical perspective, but we work with a lot of so another element of what we do is we work with journalists outside of the organization who are looking for satellite imagery to supplement their storytelling, but they might not have the geospatial or the color correction skills to get the most out of it. And so they might come to us with a story, and we help them get the imagery basically that they can use. And a lot of times the things you can see from space are often, a natural disaster like a forest fire, or flooding, um, or things of that nature. And so the subject matter can be kind of heavy sometimes, which is challenging, because you're not just working with, um, you have to do the data side of things, but then you also have to, realize what you're working with, and what you're looking at, which can be tough. Um, and sometimes the data is tough to work with, from a technical side too. Geospatial data and real world data is never perfect. And so there's a lot of time spent, trying to fix things that, just weren't quite right. And so it's always a little bit messy. But those challenges are fun. when you have to sort of, think of a new way to do something, or work through a challenge or a puzzle, to get to get the visualizations where you want them to be.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious about your experience from campus to career.
Mm-hmm.
So at Mid, you majored in, like you said, geography and environmental studies. Please tell us the rest of your story.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say that, um, as a geography major and environmental studies major, I also took some data science classes towards the end of my time at Middlebury. And so I think all of those, got me excited about working with geospatial data, working with data. As I mentioned, sort of cartography, I think especially mixing data, and the sort of design elements, which was also part of, the data science courses I took. I think, and sort of telling a story with the data, not just uh, something else. And so I think that um, got me excited, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, to be honest, when I was at Mid. And so uh, this particular job was sort of serendipitous that I found the posting for it, actually in a Middlebury geography Facebook group. Someone who didn't work at Planet, I don't think, but just sort of shared a posting, and I think I'd looked at Planet in the past and didn't see anything that looked like it was appropriate for what my skills. But found this posting and was like, whoa, that sounds awesome. That's the right mix of data and other things that I'm interested in. Um, and yeah, I think I learned also a lot of sort of skills at Middlebury, like working with GIS, working with R or different data processing formats. I wouldn't say I was an expert in any of them, but I think something that gets me excited in my role now is that I get to use a lot of different programs or a lot of different skills depending on the project. And so having that breadth of skills and knowing a little bit about a bunch of different ones, allows me to do different things and try to solve some of the problems that come up. This role that I'm in was definitely an entry level position. So had some technical requirements and preferences for knowledge of certain technical tools or skills, but wasn't requiring like someone with an advanced degree necessarily. And so that was, I think, a really good fit for the start that I had from courses at Middlebury, like using GIS in a couple different classes, or using Photoshop or R or tools like that. And so this was definitely an entry level position, but my colleagues have much more experience. One of my colleagues does have like a master's degree in cartography and GIS, and so there's definitely room for further education and further technical skills. Something that while I'm in this role, I look at and like, oh, would I want to do that in the future? Like, what would I want to study maybe to go even further in what I'm doing and sort of being exposed to what other people are doing that I might not have considered. I think I definitely wasn't ready to go to grad school right away after Middlebury. There were still way too many things I was interested in. It would be hard to pick just one. And so now seeing what other people are doing, I think it's helpful to see like, oh, what is their background and what did they study, or what is it that gets me really excited that I might want to study further. And so I've enjoyed seeing that. But I definitely did not come, I went more or less right from Middlebury to this job without further education. And I've learned a lot while doing my job. I didn't know how to color correct satellite imagery when I started. And so there's been a lot of learning those processes from my colleagues, and every day, like on the job, learning from the people that I'm working with.
Right, that's awesome. What do you think is next for you professionally? I know you briefly mentioned not going to grad school right away because you did want to scope out the field a bit. But have you like explored that thought?
Um, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I've been here for about a year now, so I'm enjoying the work and planning to continue doing this for the time being. I definitely am thinking about, future down the line, looking at, what kind of further education I might want to get if that makes sense for progressing in the field. Looking at graduate programs related to working with geospatial data or cartography, or even further into one subject area. But I still haven't made up my mind there. And yeah, I think for the time being, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and plan to keep doing that.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And given your
Mhm.
experiences and what you know now, what advice can you give to current students on how to best prepare themselves for entry points into this career field?
For sure. So I think, yeah, technical skills were definitely important in the role that I'm doing, is being familiar with like using a GIS program or working with data. But I don't, like I said, I think I've learned a lot of new tools since starting and like learned new things. And so it wasn't really necessary to be, totally an expert or in any of those areas. But I always like to think of myself as, being willing to learn new things and willing to learn new tools. And so taking, maybe only took a couple semesters using one specific program, but that wasn't the but it was learning something new, that and being comfortable learning something new, and translating what you know in one area into another. And so I think that more than being completely an expert in one technical area, being comfortable learning new skills has been important. So I definitely recommend trying different things, trying different skills, seeing what you like, but also knowing that that might not be the thing that you do every day. You might end up learning something totally new when you start working in a job, but you might you're bringing that experience from Middlebury or from a class where maybe you only had it for one semester or a couple semesters, but it still carries over. Definitely had a like a portfolio of projects that I'd worked on at Middlebury from different classes, just sort of show what I'd worked on. I think that was a good thing to have, just sort of samples of the work that you've done.
How did you hear about like this posting or this opportunity? I know you mentioned that you saw it on group post, but are there other avenues or platforms that students can log on to find jobs similar to yours?
For sure. So I know that I did a lot of, when I was searching for jobs, a lot of, thinking of places I might want to work and going to their websites, going to their job boards, looking to see if there were jobs posted that sounded interesting to me or sounded like I was qualified, looking on LinkedIn, looking on Handshake. I mean, there's so many different, platforms that bring things together, but I definitely found it at times, I think, overwhelming to go out and just search for, you're refreshing websites all the time. Like to see if something new has been posted. So I think that's definitely a challenge. And like I said, there's a little bit of maybe serendipity, a little bit of chance in terms of I might not have seen this posting if someone hadn't shared it. So just keeping your eyes open in unexpected places, I think, for hearing about things that might be interesting to you. And then um, I would say it can be frustrating when you apply to things and don't hear back. I think that's something that you don't always get a lot of feedback on what didn't work when you send out resumes and cover letters. Sometimes you just don't hear anything, and so it's hard um, to gauge what's working or what's not. And so, or at least I kind of found it that way or thought about it that way. And kind of just have to keep trying, and sort of just keep presenting yourself, and being, sharing your sort of your story and what it is that's interesting you, what's getting you excited. I know for this position, I was, really excited about it. And so I tried to convey that when writing a cover letter, like really get to the point and get to why I was excited about what I wanted to do.
Max, thank you again for sharing for your engagement with us in helping students to prepare for their first career destinations. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, I hope it's helpful. And I'm more than happy to talk to folks if you want to reach out and hear more about Planet or about other experiences after Middlebury. And so really glad to talk to Middlebury students, and hope it can be helpful.
Thank you. That concludes this episode within the series Exploring Careers in Data Analytics. In closing, I want to encourage viewers to tune in to get career perspectives and advice from a number of professionals in a broad variety of organizations in other episodes in this series. I also want to encourage you to tune into other MIDDVantage series, which can be accessed through the Events and Programs tab on the CCI website. Thank you again for watching.